ask my daughter and my son to come up here. They're both going to help in their own way. It's okay. He doesn't have his shoes on right now, but okay, that's fine. They're Crocs. They can come on real quick. Sorry, guys. We'll get there eventually. One thing I forgot. We will like this thing. I promise. If one of these works. Two twigs. This is an object lesson. Okay. We have ignition. Right.
As we light this
Okay, hold
flame,
on. There you go.
as we light this flame, may the light it casts warm your heart and open your mind. And remember that this flame was given to us by those who come before us, kept burning with the deep.
Thank you, Lorelei. Now, please rise if you're able for our opening hymn. It is in the gray hymnal, hymn number 354. We're only going to sing verses 1 and 2, which will be up on the screen as well. As we laugh, we cry. Now it is a time for all ages. I do not see too many children with us, but we have a few, and you're all welcome to come up and sit in the front here if you would like. We are going to hear a reading from member Amy Weisberg here.
Says since it's just, oh, but you can come out too. I figured you could all just sit up here with me. You want to sit up here? Yeah? You want to sit up here? Okay. I tried. I'm one of those young anymore. So this book, I love this book. I hate to say about a book that was written after the year 2000, but it's a pretty old book at this point. So who likes penguins? Who likes books about penguins? I do too. So this is a book about penguins and some other stuff, since it's Father's Day. So, in the middle of New York City, how many of you have been there? There's a great big park. It's called Central Park. And children and grown-ups like to play there. It has a toy boat pond where you can sail boats. And my very favorite place when I was a kid, because I thought it was the hugest thing in the whole world. And probably if I went back now, I would realize it's not that big, but it was the most fun. But best of all, it has its zoo, its very own zoo. And every day, families of all kinds go to visit the animals that live there. There are families of all kinds at the zoo. There are red panda families and toad families and toucan families and cotton top tamarin families. That's what those funny monkeys are. Year at the same time, the girl penguins start noticing the boy penguins, and the boy penguins start noticing the girl penguins. And when the right girl and the right boy find each other, they become a couple. But two penguins in the penguin house were a little bit different. One was named Roy. You can't tell them apart. It's really hard with penguins. One was named Roy and one was named Silo, and they were both boys, but they did everything together. They bowed to each other, and they walked together, and they sang together, and they swam together. Wherever Roy went, Silo went too. They didn't spend much time with the girl penguins, and the girl penguins didn't spend much time with them. Instead, Roy and Silo wound their necks around each other. Their keeper, Mr. Gramsay, noticed that and thought to himself, they must be in love. Roy and Silo watched how the other penguins made a home. So they built a nest of stones, which truthfully doesn't sound very comfortable to me, but that's what they do. Every night, Roy and Silo slept there together, just like the other penguin couples. And every morning they woke up together, but one day they saw that other couples could do something they could not. The mama penguin would lay an egg. She and the papa penguin would take turns keeping the egg warm until finally it would hatch and there would be a baby penguin. But Roy and Silo had no egg to sit on. Empty nest. They had no baby chick to feed and cuddle and love. Their nest was nice, but it was empty. One day, Roy found something that looked like what the other penguins were hatching, and he brought it to the nest. It was only a rock, but Silo sat on it, as you do, and sat, and when Silo got sleepy, he slept, and when Silo was done sleeping and sitting, he swam, and Roy sat. Day after day, Silo and Roy sat on the rock, but nothing happened. Then Mr. Gramsay got an idea. He found an egg that needed to be cared for, so he brought it to Roy and Silo's nest. And Roy and Silo knew just exactly what to do because they've been watching the other penguins. They moved the egg to the center of the nest, and every day they turned it so it would stay warm. And some days Roy sat on it while Silo went for food, and other days it was Silo's turn to take care of the egg. They sat in the morning, and they sat at night, and they sat through lunchtime and swim time and supper, and they sat at the beginning of the month, and they sat at the end of the month, and they sat all of the days in between. Until one day they heard a sound coming from inside their egg. It said, what did it say? Beep. Roy and Silo called back. Squawk, squawk. Beep, beep, answered the egg. Suddenly a tiny hole appeared in the egg's shell. And then out came their own baby. She had fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak. Now Roy and Silo were fathers. We'll call her Tango, Mr. Gramsay decided. This is a bad pun. Because it takes two to make a tango. Children won't understand that. Roy and Silo taught Tango how to sing for them when she was hungry. They fed her food from their beaks. They snuggled her in their nest at night. Tango was the very first penguin in the zoo to have two daddies. Soon Tango grew strong enough to leave the nest. Roy and Silo took her for a swim, just like all the other penguin families. And all the children who came to the zoo could see Tango and her two fathers playing in the penguin house with the other penguins. Hooray, Roy, they cheered. Hooray, Silo. Welcome, Tango, they cheered. And at night, the three penguins returned to their nest. There they snuggled together, and like all the other penguins in the penguin house, and all the other animals in the zoo, and all the people in the big city around them, they went to sleep. Oh.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. There they go. A revered tradition in our fellowship is the sharing of personal joys, milestones, and concerns during our service. This is a sacred time. It is for individuals who are experiencing truly significant events in their personal lives. We invite you to come forward, place a pebble in the bowl, and share silently or in just a few words. And through this brief ritual, we deepen our connection to one another. Now, for a moment of meditation, we're going to sit just for a moment. Silence. You can meditate or pray or just breathe. And then, after a brief moment, I will close with some words by Khalil Gibran. Children. They are the sons and the daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. Generosity is a spiritual practice in our fellowship and is supported, our fellowship is supported we share cash and designated checks with our Split the Plate partner PFLAG, which also meets in our building as well, and you can check out their website for more information on that. Wait, hold on one second. We actually haven't figured out who is going to carry the offertory plate. Hey, thank you. Oh, you're doing it. Okay. Never mind.
It started out as a feeling, which then grew into a hope, which then grew into a and then that word grew. Doesn't mean it's never been that way before. All you can do is try to know who your friends are as you head off to the war. Pick a star on the dark horizon and follow the light. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. just a feeling and no one knows yet. But just because they can't feel it too doesn't mean that you have to forget. Let your memories grow stronger and stronger till they're before your eyes. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica. A little dramatic punctuation there for the ending. Mic drop, as they say. Hello, friends. Well, American ethnobotanist and mystic Terence McKenna was known to say that out of all of our apparently human experiences, two are the most transformative and life-changing. The first is travel. It's far too easy for us to see the world from one small, isolated point of view. No matter how much we read about the world around us, seek out stories and accounts of others who have traveled, it's impossible to really see outside of our discrete worlds and worldviews, our media bubbles, our echo chambers, without physically removing ourselves from our comfort zone and opening ourselves to new opportunities, new chance meetings, new revelations, and overall greater empathy. This too is what I found when I finally escaped the bonds of conservative Christian suburbia to which I was born. Shedding my old skin, I discovered that there were so many ways to believe, to understand and to search, to love and to care. I was transformed into a new person with more hope, more optimism, as well as kindness and empathy. It was uncomfortable a lot of the time, scary too, but this kind of life-altering transformation is rarely without labor pains. However, along with that discomfort came great joy as well, in many tangible and intangible ways. For example, if I had not left Florida to explore the greater United States, I would have never met my wife and best friend, Rachel. Hitchhiking, living as vagrants, hobos, tramps, whatever fun word you like. In our community, we always called ourselves dirty kids. I think this is the perfect way to describe who we were at that time. Every bit the lost boys of Pan's Neverland, caught somewhere between youth and adulthood, old enough to grow up, but fundamentally against the whole idea of fitting in, selling out. Faced with the decision to join the ranks of the workforce and take our place within the sacred market economy, we instead dropped out, ran away into the in-between spaces, the forgotten patches of woods next to interstates and truck stops, under bridges, behind bushes, on asbestos-covered floors of punk warehouse squats, in the crumbling decay of a once flourishing industrial nation. Life as a dirty kid was wild, unpredictable, and often chaotic, but extremely fun. It feels good in a simple, basic, hedonistic sense to just live for yourself and those around you. We woke up each morning, very little, often no food or water, and set out each day anew, looking first for sustenance, but then for recreation, and then rinse, repeat over and over. Ultimately, didn't add up to much more than a few bad habits and even worse tooth decay. At some point, Rachel and I both began to feel like our life on the road needed to come to an end. We both felt like we had gotten a lot from the experience and that our lives had been changed forever. We had also found each other. But our wild and free life was far too enjoyable to ever give up willingly. So in what I see now as a pretty dramatic decision, typical of the young and reckless, we decided to have our first kid. And this is where we get to the second of McKenna's most transformative human experiences, parenting. There it is, the Father's Day part. Had to get there eventually, right? And you might be thinking it, maybe not, but I'll say it because it's something I have heard from many over the past decade of parenthood. But we became parents the wrong way, at least according to polite society and the complaints and accusations of friends and family. We were homeless, tramping from state to state, aimless and adrift, without a single dime in savings, nor a bank account between us. No health insurance, no safety nets. We had no idea how any of it was going to work. But we trusted and loved each other and knew that together we could figure it out as we went along. Heck, it had worked so far, hadn't it? I think it should go without saying that neither of us had any real idea of what we were in for. But no matter how hard it's gotten, I have never regretted that decision. Though I know that it probably would have been a lot easier if we had had careers, a house, a good family car, and the ability to pay for all the little things that kids need. Now, here I would love to recount all the unbelievable details of my children's birth and our incredible adventures on the way to having our first child, Lorelei. I'm not here to tell those stories, though maybe another time. What I want to talk about today is how being a father has changed my life, made me a better person, and taught me greater empathy, forgiveness. It didn't happen all at once. No, I'm a pretty slow learner sometimes, and a big part of me just didn't want to grow up. It was a struggle. It really was. But it has gotten easier. When Lorelei was first born, I was enchanted. It was hard to even comprehend this little life before me. Tiny, frail, and beautiful. An ugly, cute, squinched-faced goober. It was a lot to process. I remember I would stare at her for hours, waiting for her to go to sleep, and then watch her while she slept, my heart racing, irrationally afraid that she would just stop breathing. But after a while, the newborn sheen, it starts to wear off. That late nights with the screaming, the crying, the pooping, they really start to add up. The pats on the back don't work. They keep crying, and you just don't know why. And at this point, I admit I started to panic. What had we done? Why did we do this? Was this even a good idea? I'm not proud to admit it, but there was one night around this time, I took some of the very little money that we had between us, without asking my wife, currently nursing our newborn, and went to the store and bought a 6-pack of beer. I was at least a couple deep when Rachel realized what I had done and was appropriately furious. She needed my help, now more than ever. And here I was, back to my old hedonism, thinking only of myself. I wish I could say that from that point on, it was smooth sailing, that I never messed up again, that I was a perfect partner, as well as a perfect parent. But of course, it's taken many, many screw-ups, mistakes, and much patience and forgiveness from my family. Still, I'm not perfect. Now, that first part, though, the struggling with the new reality of being a parent, learning to care for someone outside of yourself, in my opinion, turns out that's the easy part. The harder bit comes when they start talking. And more to the point, when they start asking questions. And more, not just simple stuff either, like, where does the rain come from? More complicated stuff, like, what is the economy? But really tough questions, like, what happens when we die? Does God exist? Why do people keep starting wars? I can't remember where, but I've heard it called the parenting time bomb. Most parents, if they are lucky enough to eventually get to have these tough discussions, cannot avoid them forever. This is why it's called a time bomb. At some point, it's going to go off. Let me give a couple of real life examples. Living in an area culturally and spiritually dominated by evangelicalism of one form or another means that our children are confronted with difficult and awkward social situations regularly. Rachel and I had done our best not to imprint any specific religious points of view on our children, and for years we did not consider ourselves religious, nor did we have any kind of spiritual religious practice as a family. Not long after our children started going back to school here at Blue Water Elementary, my son Shua was told by a friend of his that if he did not believe in Jesus, that he would go to hell forever when he died. As someone who grew up in the conservative evangelical world, hell had always been a deep anxiety for me. And it was certainly not an idea that I had ever wanted to pass on to my children. And still, here's my son, worried, wanting to understand the truth, wanting to understand why so many people, including his friend, believe things that aren't true. The time bomb had exploded. Another time, Rachel overheard Lorelei talking to some friends from gymnastics. They were discussing what they believed, as one girl proudly proclaimed that she was a Christian and believed in God. Lorelei responded, speaking of our family, saying, "We don't believe in anything." Boom. The first lesson of parenthood, I believe, is a simple and practical one. Our part in the great chain of being is first to be cared for, and then later to care for others, just as we were nurtured. The individual must become part of a larger community. But the second lesson is a lot less straightforward. What I learned from the time bomb was that I was unprepared to answer these questions. Not that I didn't try. If anyone knows me, I tried. But my efforts alone were never going to be enough. I had to realize that I needed help. I needed a community around me, a spiritual and moral framework by which to see the world. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, Rachel and I decided that we wanted to find a Unitarian Universalist congregation to plug into. That was you guys. Now, our whole family is on the path of religious exploration together, along with our congregation. Together, we engage in a free and responsible search for meaning and truth, and find inspiration from many great sages, poets, and prophets, as well as inspiration from fellow members of this congregation. Now, when my son asks of hell, I can tell him of our cherished Universalist minister, Hosea Ballou, how he too wondered as a boy about hell, how he would later come to preach a message of a universal God that was loving and forgiving to all people, a God who was our Father, and like any loving father, could never bear to toss his own children into some place like hell. And I can say to him confidently, buddy, if there is such a God out there, which I don't even know there is, that loving God would never send you to hell. And to my daughter, saying that we believe in nothing, I can firmly say that we do believe in some things. We believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We believe that we are deeply interwoven and interdependent with all existence and must protect our environment. We believe that no matter what comes after death, whether God or gods exist at all, that all we can do here and now is try and spread love where we can, build healthy communities dedicated to social justice and to the end of inequality. We can try to make heaven on earth, no matter what comes next. May it be so, and amen. I'm going to welcome Rachel up here to read this last bit while I extinguish.
As we extinguish.
Oh, do we have a hymn first?
We do.
Getting way ahead of myself. I was just excited. I apologize. Please open to the Teal hymnal, 1051, to one of my favorites that we almost skipped, which is We Are. Thank you, bud. And the words will be up on the screen. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are sons of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. That's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Thank you. I wouldn't want to forget that one. Yes, and now we are ready for Rachel. Thank you so much.
As we extinguish this chalice, know that it will not stay extinguished. It will continue to be lit over and over as long as fellowships like ours continue to gather in love.
Friends, may you be well along your way. Go with love on your hearts, kindness on your lips, and service in your hands. Please remain seated for the postlude. There you go. You're free.